I like music, and by extension, I like video game music. A lot. Wow, I really gotta work on my opening lines. While video game music is overlooked by some, I think it heavily influences my personal enjoyment of a game. I mean, here's a boss fight without music.
Ike! Yeah!
And here's a boss fight with music, like holy shit. Soundtracks often end up as one of my favorite takeaways from the games I play, sometimes even more than characters, story, or even gameplay. Sonic Forces. Music can be used in so many unique ways to offer new mechanics, depict atmospheres and characters, or enhance the emotional impact of a story. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a roguelike dungeon crawler, but both you and the enemies move to the beat of the music. Animal Crossing changes music every hour, and each song creates its own little feeling of tranquility. Cheery tunes play to start the morning, while things become more calm and somber as the shops start to close and villagers go to bed in the evening. Mika has a fantastic video about this where he goes into much more detail, so I'll link that in the description. Thinking about all this led me to the realization that all I do in my free time is listen to game soundtracks for good music, so why not make a video about them? This is it. Here's my top 10 video game soundtracks as of the end of 2018. I'm marking this point in time because the list has been constantly changing since I first thought up this video many months ago. And while there are plenty of games with incredible songs like Pokemon battle themes or that jammin' vocal track from Splatoon 2, I'm choosing these based on the entire soundtrack. You know I can't dance. Don't play the song. Don't fucking do it! Just so you know, there will probably be visual spoilers for most of these games, but for big story stuff, I'll make sure to specify when. Now that all that's out of the way, let's start off with number 10. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg is a game about some kid who finds a chicken suit and has to roll massive eggs around to kill crow monsters and restore sunlight through the power of rooster calls. Sega, what the fuck are you on when you make these games? While going through my game collection to make the list for this video, I overlooked Billy Hatcher at first. I have a lot of fond memories of the game and even made a video on it 2 years ago, but never thought too much about the soundtrack. But after listening to it in full, this soundtrack is really good. It reflects the style of the game perfectly, that style being, wow, wacky, zany, I'm playing as a child in a fucking chicken suit rolling massive eggs around. You've got genres like jazz, swing, and black magic, because I'm pretty sure there's an ethereal force causing me to bounce uncontrollably while listening to it. No matter where you are in the game, the music matches the location and never stays the same for too long. You've got loud and empowering big band music for boss fights like in Bighorn's Explosion. You know the one. And what do you think the song Odd March for the carnival themed level sounds like? Yeah, pretty accurate. I don't have much else to elaborate on about this soundtrack. It's upbeat, it's energetic. Bossa Nova of Briny Air might be one of my favorite instrumental tracks of all time, and it fits Sega's 2003 fever dream about a kid that finds a fucking chicken suit and the new Donk City theme. Fun fact, if you go through the videos on my channel, this is the background track to way too many of them. Without Nintendo music, my videos would probably be at least 20% less watchable. Super Mario Odyssey revolves around Mario taking a nonsensical trip around the world where each kingdom is a joyous surprise and nothing really makes sense. This world is made out of food, for God's sake. The residents are forks. The soundtrack shakes things up to reflect this, and it's pretty confusing at first. While many Mario games maintain that consistent Mario style and feel, play a song like Bubblain from the Seaside Kingdom and people might think you're into some 1960s bossa nova instead. But in the same vein, I think that's why I like this soundtrack so much. Mario's soundtracks are always so incredible, yet so similar. They sound like well, Mario soundtracks. But Odyssey, it's all over the place, taking inspirations from different genres and styles around the world. This specific example is nothing new to video games, but an interesting thing to note on what can already be called a certified jam is the way that the Robo Brood battle theme shifts during the fight. When you approach this boss, it's so massive and menacing that it begins with the musical equivalent of huge footsteps, then throws in a funky bass riff before knocking you backwards with its horns. But after you've hit some bombs at the giant thing, the music totally shifts during the boss's vulnerable phase. It leads with a Japanese shamisen to reflect the theme of the kingdom, while some encouraging battle cries echo in the background. But then as it gets back on its feet, bam, it's back to the fight, baby. Who needs the birds? I'm taking the speedrun route. And to top it all off, Mario Odyssey also has 2 theme songs with vocals that, while pretty cliche and cheesy in their lyrics, were paired with such incredible moments that it caused them to be painfully seared into my memory with nothing but childlike wonder and happiness. Except for that time when I ruined my speedrun. Up on the movies. If you know me, you probably know that I grew up with, and am therefore a huge fan of, Sonic games, but not exactly the ones that usually come to mind. With some of my first Sonic games being titles like Sonic Advance for the GBA, or many of the 3D games like Sonic Adventure 2, I missed most of classic Sonic and the Genesis era. I've since played through the original Sonic games, but they were never directly a part of my childhood, and yet, Sonic Mania's soundtrack gives me a nostalgic feeling for levels and games I never even really played as a kid. Each stage in Sonic Mania has 2 versions of its song for the 2 acts, with the first keeping things similar to the original in pace and melody while adding hints of something new. It's very nostalgic without being exactly the same. On the other hand, Act 2 is like the Kool-Aid Man breaking down the fucking wall with everything new the music can do over 20 years later without the storage and mixing restrictions of the original Sonic games. T-Lopes had the opportunity to take beloved songs and give them new style and life without losing their original feel, which is super cool. And I say T-Lopes because most of this soundtrack was made by one guy. Also, forget the classics. I mean, don't, but just go with me here. Have you heard the songs for the new levels? Studiopolis, Press Garden, Mirage Saloon, and Titanic Monarch. Like, what the fuck? This game achieved the impossible for modern Sonic games in that it had amazing music and... wait for it. It was also a good video game. And an indie team made the whole thing! Case closed, we're moving on. I am a child again, and punk rock is officially the coolest thing ever. I'm gonna be real with you here. Sonic Adventure 2 isn't good. Whenever I play through this godforsaken game, it somehow gets worse every time. Terrible mech levels, janky controls, annoying mechanics, and a story so ridiculous that it involves both a giant space lizard and the President of the United States. Despite all these flaws and more, my fond memories just won't allow me to let go. So for some reason, it still stands as one of my favorite video games of all time, and I think the soundtrack is a huge reason why. If this list was based entirely on nostalgia, this game would be number 1 for me. Number 0. No other game would even be on the goddamn list. There is just such an incredible mess of great music packed into Sonic Adventure 2 that even though the game itself is objectively bad and the songs are all over the place, it's fucking awesome. Metal Harbor. The Chow Garden. Meteor Herd. Ah, familiar, isn't it? I wonder why. Outside of the Knuckles songs being complete jams already, there's also this entire internet theory that the bizarre early 2000s hip-hop written for his levels actually tells a story about how Knuckles is the only real character in the game, and the entire experience is part of his drug-induced hallucinations as he goes through his lowest moments before being born anew. I'm not kidding.
I know how much the emerald means to you, and I want to help get it back.
You're damn right, Knuckles. Sonic Adventure 2 was one of my favorite games of all time growing up, and 3D Sonic games, as bad as they've been, mean so much to me. And even now, listening to the incredibly diverse amount of genres and ideas that Sega was able to pack in here, I absolutely love it. The game still kinda sucks though. And don't worry, the next soundtrack isn't another Sonic one. Can't have 3 in a row, right?
Here we go!
I lied. Alright, I know there's been 3 in a row, but I promise this is the last Sonic soundtrack on the list. I've played almost every 3D Sonic game out there, okay? Give me a break. Even though Sonic Adventure 2 might have the highest BSI, that's bangers per square inch, I think Sonic Unleashed is just a more impressive soundtrack overall. Sonic Unleashed is the Super Mario Odyssey of Sonic games, except in Unleashed, which also came out way earlier, so I'm not sure why I'm using this analogy, the locations are based off of real places like China, Western Europe, and the Cyclades Islands in Greece. This real-world styling is where I think Sonic Unleashd's soundtrack really shows its musical prowess. Tomoya Otani, the game's musical director, explained this aspect of the soundtrack in an interview. Since the story is about traveling around the world, the regional characteristics of the visited country needed to be expressed in the music. And man, did they do a good job. In addition to styling each track to its respective real-world location, the sound team also managed to create 2 unique atmospheres for the day and nighttime music. Because this is a video about game music and not the games themselves, we're just gonna ignore the werehog levels from a gameplay standpoint. Maybe there's a reason I don't remember much about them. Wow, this sounds great, and man, I love the frame rate too. The daytime and nighttime levels complement the respective styles of gameplay. The day tracks are filled with upbeat and fast melodies and percussion for that famous Sonic speed, while the night music shifts to some incredible stylings not typically associated with Sonic. To reflect the werehog's slow, heavy playstyle and mysterious surroundings, the music substitutes strong, predictable drum beats with atmospheric jazz in a lot of cases. Just take a listen to how different 2 songs from the same location sound. Here's the daytime theme. And here's the nighttime theme. I don't really know how to end my review of this soundtrack. It's just really solid and enjoyable all around, and I feel like it adds a whole new dimension to Sonic's established musical style. That's it for Sonic soundtracks. Pinky swear, cross my heart and hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. Living in the city, you know you have to survive. Sonic R didn't make the list. Alright, we're getting into serious territory with this one. I don't think I have enough writing prowess or knowledge of music theory to describe the power of Celeste's soundtrack. I love the way it complements both story and gameplay, and the way it packs so many complex and contrasting feelings into each and every song so they can tell their own stories outside of the context of the game. It's still mind-blowing that one person made this soundtrack. Can we get a round of applause for Lena Raine, please?
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, Celeste.
Celeste tells the story of Madeline, a young girl who sets out to climb Celeste Mountain. As she embarks on her journey, she is thrown headfirst into the mysteries of the mountain, forcing her to face the manifestation of the depression and anxiety she's attempting to overcome. Celeste's soundtrack mixes intimate piano playing with more modern elements like synthesizers and ambient noises, with many of the tracks checking in at over 6 minutes long as they explore ranges of emotions and ideas. After having played through the game, these songs become so much more than just instrumental tracks in a video game. I can picture the level, the situation, the cinematic moment, the emotions that each song encapsulates. First Steps conveys the opposing fear and excitement at the start of the climb. The tone of the song jumps back and forth between different chords and melodies to depict these feelings, with hesitant sections like this, before jumping into something much more uplifting and exciting. Anxiety begins quiet and somber, slowly developing into something much more sinister as a result of Madeline's depression and stress during the journey. And Confronting Myself plays for the battle against Madeline's subconscious that also happens to be one of the coolest damn songs I've heard all year. Outside of how impressive the soundtrack is in its own right, the reason it's so high on my list is because of how much it means to me personally. How much it complemented and enhanced Celeste's storytelling for an experience that stuck with me on an emotional level. There is just so much care and detail packed into Celeste's music, and I love every second of it. With so much of modern music being entirely digital nowadays, it is incredibly refreshing and comforting just to hear the pressing of piano keys and pedals in a song. It feels like home. Celeste's OST is able to explore the depths of mental illness while also finding time for relaxation, pure energy, and excitement. Where there's a downfall, there's a subsequent recovery. When I'm overwhelmed, I use this soundtrack to take a moment and breathe. I mean, not exactly like that, but I guess it could work. You ever have one of those dreams where you wake up and you can't seem to remember what just happened, but you can feel it? In retrospect, that's kinda how I feel about this game and its music. Octopath Traveler is a game about 8 people assisting each other through their personal adventures. I found some of these character vignettes to be engaging, but some weren't. I sang glowing praises when I reviewed the game, but I feel as if I didn't hold on to as much as I would have expected. Even the side quests, which are a beautiful part of the game, are somewhat lost in my mind. But the thing that stuck with me the most is its orchestral soundtrack, and I feel it has the ability to bring me back to the charming world of Octopath Traveler. Each character in the game has several musical ties, but they don't just stop at motifs, themes, and signifying instruments, which is already a lot to give to 8 characters. Composer Yasunori Nishiki created transition pieces in the style of each character's theme to perfectly transition to the boss fight, which has the same music no matter what character story you're playing. So the merchant's theme is signified with a harmonica, and her lead-in sounds like this.
It's time you learned that money is might!
Now, let's get down to business.
This shit is so cool. When talking about video game music, I try not to be repetitive by simply saying, oh, this song gives you feelings and shit. But this game has songs that are so rooted in depicting emotion or tension that they almost become comedic when you start to hear them play. You'll enter a cutscene and hear this song named Enveloped in Kindness for the 20th time, and it's basically like, warning, sad alert. This shit is about to get sad. Please silence your cell phones now. After listening to this soundtrack again in full, I feel like it helped to bring back my memories of why I enjoyed this game so much in the first place. With many of my favorite songs being the calm background tracks from towns and the overworld, the music of Octopath Traveler instilled within me a sense of nostalgia for its atmosphere, even though I literally just played the game less than half a year ago. Top 3, we're getting into the real shit now. To give you a quick idea of what Nier Automata is all about while spoiling as little as possible, basically you play as androids sent by humans to destroy robots and reclaim Earth. But the robots aren't all bad, and you start thinking, well shit, even though they're robots, they have feelings and emotions, and they're building civilizations, and the androids themselves are questioning their own purpose, so what the fuck is the worth of a soul anyway? The game's soundtrack can be melancholy, tense, or relaxing, and it does a great job in assisting Nier Automata's philosophical storytelling. So in today's Philosophy 101 lecture, we're going to talk about Nier Automata's connection to existentialism through the studies of Jean-Paul Sartre. Hey, no forming self-destructive cults during class! Stop jumping into the fire! Many songs in the game have calm versions for when you first arrive in each deserted area, but they dynamically change through actions like battling, adding more instruments and energy without messing with the atmosphere of what was already playing. Also, you might be hearing those lyrics in the background. Those, they aren't real. It's an entirely fake language based on what the writers thought certain languages like Japanese and French could sound like in the future. Because why the fuck not? It's a game about robots, so where do we draw the line, really? Nier Automata was one of the most engaging storytelling experiences I've played in the past few years, and I just can't put my stupid sappy feelings into words for this one. Just know that it's this high on my list for a reason, and that every song is beautiful. Every single one. I paid $40 for that costume. All jokes aside, Undertale is one of my favorite games of all time. From start to finish, it's incredibly charming, funny, unsettling, and everything in between. As you start to play Undertale for the first time, it just feels like a fun little twist on RPGs. You have a mechanic that allows you to spare monsters instead of killing them, but you still have RPG tropes like turn-based battles, retro music, silly characters, and shops. You get the idea. Its soundtrack and writing is filled with so much heart and humor that you begin to fall in love with the game's characters. I mean, I could attack this little frog, but he's just a little frog. He's cute. Can I be his friend? This game isn't just about a little bit of charm and comedy. We're past the expiration date on Undertale spoilers, so buckle up. As you reach the end of Undertale's first playthrough, you start to realize that something's a little different about this game. It starts breaking the fourth wall, directly addressing the player, crashing the game, and talking about your save file. It throws you for a loop based on your traditional expectations of a video game, and the music follows suit. The first example of this is everyone's favorite, most adorable boss, Omega Flowey. Aw, look, it's that mean little flower guy. Oh my god! Kill it! Oh god! I thought this was a game about funny skeletons! As you continue through Undertale's multiple playthroughs, the complexity of the game begins to unveil itself, and it utilizes music to drive home its story and emotions. In the Pacifist Route's final boss fight, shit just goes fucking wild. He shows up and starts shooting rainbow lasers and talking about timelines, so the game pulls out the incredible song Hopes and Dreams to keep you determined in the fight to save your friends. If you choose to play the genocide route and intentionally kill every spawnable enemy, the game knows it is a conscious decision. In-game dialogue changes as NPCs start to realize you, the player, aren't human. Bosses die in one hit. The entire story is altered. The game's music follows by changing pitch and slowing down to reflect your sinister actions. When you're out of enemies to kill, the game's just like, hey, you sack of shit, you don't get music anymore. It's not just the songs themselves that make Undertale's soundtrack so versatile and interesting. It's also the fact that almost every song in the game is connected. I mean, if you rearrange the letters in Undertale, you get Deltarune, but if you do it with a little more finesse, you can actually see that it just spells leitmotif. This soundtrack has songs for different characters, locations, events, and specific points in time, and they all mesh together over the course of your journey. This method of soundtrack design is definitely unconventional, but it works perfectly in a game like Undertale, giving the player constant subtle reminders about past feelings and events with familiar melodies to make the current moment more impactful. But even though it doesn't sound repetitive in the slightest, it is. Don't believe me? Ghost Fight. Plays when you fight the ghost. Speed that shit up, it's the Dummies battle theme. Fight the spider. And then the new boss fight on the Nintendo Switch, I wonder what that one sounds like. Why is this whole soundtrack just the same song? You'll never see it coming. Get it? 'Cause Persona? It's Persona 5! You probably saw this one coming, but whatever, let's get into it. It was difficult for me to choose which Persona game I wanted to include on the list, but I eventually settled on Persona 5 because of how much it uses its music to tell both sides of its story. It's depicted right there on the cover art. In case you don't already know, the main story and gameplay aspect of Persona that separates it from most other JRPGs is the experience of a double life. During the day, you're a regular high school student, but at night, you become the leader of the Phantom Thieves, a group of masked vigilantes who battle the horrendous shadows of the cruel and arrogant adults around them. The fighting's cool, sure, but no matter how many times I bring it up, it's really hard to make studying in a video game sound interesting. Main vocal songs and battle themes perfectly match the style gushing out of Persona 5's characters, user interfaces, and overall powerful and rebellious art style. These songs make you feel like the grand heroes defeating the villains, sneaking through palaces and stealing treasure. They can confidently stand alone as an incredible half to the soundtrack, and my god, they go hard. Rivers in a dry land. The last day to lost it. Where the soundtrack really completes itself is in its more laid-back and mysterious half that it uses to reflect the daily stresses of a high school student, who is also, you know, fighting monsters every night. Two songs that I think portray this aesthetic perfectly are Layer Cake and Beneath the Mask. I want to play a little bit of Beneath the Mask because, looking past its clever, pun-based title, it's a song that you might not expect after watching something like the game's main trailer. It's a song that plays after you get back from doing all the tough stuff, and creates this rainy mood that makes you contemplate the limited amount of time you have in Persona and the challenges that still lie in front of you.
Without a sign, without grasping it, the real question to be asked, where have I been?
This duality in the soundtrack itself is so genius, and it's why I think it holds such a powerful connection to the game, conveying so much more than what it portrays in its aggressive, over-the-top flair. Take an example like the song Have a Short Rest, which plays in the save rooms of palaces. It's relaxing, but with a slight sense of exhaustion, reminding the player that these vigilante heroes fighting monsters are also just high school kids trying to survive. It serves as a stark yet welcome contrast to the overwhelmingly powerful and energetic main themes. When you also consider how Persona 5's calendar system literally doesn't allow you to accomplish everything or play the game forever, the calm side of the soundtrack fills you with a sense of nostalgia for things that might have only happened a few hours ago. During my own playthrough, I would put down the controller sometimes to just take in every moment I'd experienced so far, both inside the game and out. That's why, as of right now, Persona 5 is my favorite video game soundtrack. Wow, 27 minutes. Thanks for watching the whole thing. I wanted to try experimenting with some new styles and ideas, and I love talking about video game music, so I'm glad I finally got around to making this video. Let me know what your favorite game soundtrack is in the comments. Haha, user interaction, am I right, fellas? Give me the views. Also, if you'd like to support me, consider checking out my Patreon. I have different rewards, including preview posts, a private Discord chat, and video shoutouts. And speaking of shoutouts, we got 3 this month. Thank you to Libranox, Greenie, and Skylar Costello. Now that Joker is going to be in Smash, that means Persona 5 music is also going to be in Smash, so I guess that means Smash will be the best soundtrack of all time. Still can't beat Sonic Adventure 2 though.